The Indian subcontinent has a very distinct tilt. The Deccan Plateau naturally slopes downward toward the east, which dictates the flow of nearly all of the country's major waterways. The Ganges, Brahmaputra, and Godavari. Gravity pulls them eastward, eventually draining into the Bay of Bengal. But there is a massive anomaly. The Narmada River completely defies this continental slope. Instead of flowing east, it cuts directly west, carving a 1,312-kilometer path straight into the Arabian Sea. Drawing a hard lateral line across the country's center, it serves as a massive physical barrier. For centuries, this massive river has been universally recognized as the traditional geographic dividing line separating North from South India. This westward flow creates a distinct ecological and cultural corridor. Hemmed in by mountain ranges, the basin fostered rich biological diversity and localized tribal traditions that diverged from the rest of the country. So, what kind of planetary force causes a river of this size to flow backward, fighting the natural geographic grain of an entire continent? To understand the identity of central India, we have to look underground, at the violent geological mechanics that force this river to rebel. Millions of years ago, the Earth's crust literally pulled apart between the Vindhya and Satpura mountain ranges. A massive block of land collapsed and dropped downward, creating a deep tectonic trench known as a graben. Bounded by towering rock walls on either side, the resulting Narmada Rift Valley acts like a gigantic stone funnel. It physically traps the water and dictates its path, forcing it down a steep western gradient toward the coast. This geomorphological map of the river basin reveals the extreme diversity of that sunken topography. The upper reaches near the river's origin are choked with residual hills and heavily dissected plateaus, proving just how rugged this channel actually is. Because the river descends a fractured, uneven staircase of rock, it generates highly volatile currents. At Dhuandar, the water plunges with such immense force that the gorge is permanently shrouded in a cloud of mist. Past the falls, the Narmada squeezes into a 60-foot channel, boxed in by sheer limestone cliffs at Bedaghat. Rapids, waterfalls, and steep gorges made navigating this water incredibly dangerous. While eastern rivers like the Ganges easily became bustling commercial superhighways, the Narmada's violent topography kept merchants out, preserving the valley as a secluded sanctuary. Local communities, particularly the ancient Gond tribes, looked at this treacherous, backward-flowing river, and they saw a distinct living personality. They relied on folklore to make sense of the harsh geology. According to legend, Princess Narmada was a divine figure who turned away from the eastern sunrise. She chose a difficult, westward path out of sheer defiance and heartbreak. She had been betrothed to a neighboring river king, the Sambhadra, but when she discovered him entwined with her own handmaiden, Johila, she swore off marriage entirely. She forged a solitary opposite route to the sea to escape them. Down in the literal riverbed, the hard science of the Rift Valley meets this mythology. Millions of years of friction from those violent tectonic currents have tumbled and polished rough pieces of quartz into perfectly smooth oval stones. Hindus revere these naturally polished stones as Banalingas. They are universally worshipped as physical manifestations of Lord Shiva. The turbulent hydrology of a sunken trench directly sculpted the region's most sacred religious iconography. Because of its isolated purity and these deep origin myths, the Narmada is worshipped as a living deity, a sentient goddess whose very presence is believed to grant liberation. This reverence birthed the Narmada Parikrama, the only river on Earth commanding a mass circular pilgrimage. It's a grueling 2,600-kilometer walk, taking 3 to 6 months. The strictest rule is pilgrims must never cross the water, completing a perfect, unbroken loop. The journey traditionally begins high in the Maikal Hills at Amarkantak. Here, at the sacred source of the river, travelers take their formal pledge before stepping out into the wilderness. Over the next few thousand kilometers, a vast network of ancient forts and temples anchors the route, providing shelter and spiritual milestones for the exhausted walkers. During nightly ceremonies at the Ghats, Massive crowds gather to offer fire and lamps to the current, a visceral display of human devotion tied entirely to the flow of the water. The Narmada is the ultimate example of geography dictating human practice. A tectonic fracture forced an aggressive landscape. That landscape inspired myths of defiance, which now pull millions of pilgrims into a 2,600-kilometer circle around its banks.